Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is Rolf Larsen, a long-standing recognized pioneer of internet access, domain registrar, and web hosting services throughout Europe and Scandinavia. Today, Rolf and I discuss his journey into the domain investing industry, as well as why he considers himself a domain hobbyist. In addition, we talk about what it's like to have birthed Europe's first of its kind fully automated domain registration and web hosting service, as well as other notable stops along the way. We also discuss what Rolf's passions are in terms of innovation. And last but not least, Rolf shares and unveils his latest project, desktop.com. So with that, Rolf, welcome, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Thank you, Alvin, and thank you for having me on this podcast. I have some background in the tech space and obviously in the domain space as well as a serial entrepreneur. And my background started out very much as a techie, and I guess it hasn't ended yet. So, but it evolved more into sort of a commercial thinking, and therefore I've been starting and operating businesses along the way. I'm not the tech geek anymore, but I do keep sort of updated on the tech space, for sure.
Good deal. So where are you based from? I mean, it sounds like a deep South Texas accent.
Yeah, no, it's I'm Norwegian, and I'm hiding in France, between vineyards in France, south of France. I'm very happy to be here. You know, it was something I always wanted to live somewhere else than Norway.
So then, how are things going in terms of like COVID?
For me personally, or from us as a family, we don't, you know, have such a big change from the usual. You know, if you live more rural and you have a lot of space, it's not a huge change. It was awful with the restaurants closing. I have to say that's one of the bigger social outings that we do here, and it's of course also the same thing when they close the beaches for you know, going to the ocean and swim. So, but yeah, other than that, it hasn't been too bad, I would say. And in France, they have you know, opened up quite well, and it's not so hard struck by the virus anymore.
Good deal. Well, it's all like we're all impacted, you know, at a personal, even a professional level. I mean, obviously, a little bit of what I do in terms of podcasting as well as domain investing, obviously, can be done anywhere as long as we have an internet connection, and a little bit of the same for you. So it is, while it is a change and it is a great impact, not too much has changed. Like you said, you can't necessarily go to the restaurants or do the normal things that you probably would do outside of the home. So have you always been involved in tech? I mean, what's your background? I mean, did you go to school for tech or what?
Yeah, I started with tech long before I had school for tech, but yeah, I started out even just before I was a teenager. I started with electronics, and you know, started to build things on my own with some friends in my neighborhood when I used to live in Norway. And that quickly evolved into sort of digital electronics, which was something that came out. I'm a few years old, so it's some time ago. So back in the 70s, and that yeah. So when you know, all the digital stuff came, of course computers came along with it, and the first computers were microcomputers, and you know, they didn't have much of an operating system back then. It was very sort of simple, and if you were to code them, you actually code them in machine code, not even assembly code.
Wow.
So that's how it started for me, this interest of electronics and the interest of having a computer that controlled electronics. So that was really my passion back then, and so I got into programming, obviously, and machine coding, went into assembly coding, went into C, Pascal, Modular 2, all kinds of different languages. And obviously all kinds of different operating systems along the way.
Interesting. And so then, I guess, when did you meet up with the internet?
That was with the universities wanting to get online in the beginning of the 90s, so 92, where I helped universities to get online. And back then I had my sort of computer company. We called it that back then. A company that sort of did everything the customer wanted. If you build some software, build software. If you wanted to buy a computer, we sold it, or build a network or whatever. So that was probably my best experience in order to to build companies later on, because I got to do all kinds of things back then, and serving customers of all kinds. So having that direct customer contact and being very sort of hands-on, solving things that you couldn't really just call someone that could help you with it. So you had to figure everything out back then, and there was not much Google to rely on.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I was very much into networking back then, and in Norway, we weren't that many, and for that reason, I was asked to help universities to get online.
So then you went from, I guess, connecting universities, that then I guess that spun into like your own ISP.
Well, there were, say, not-for-profit networks that were operated back then, that onboarded universities. So what I saw is that here is a huge resource, and there was some companies that were already sort of half commercial, I would say, because it was half government owned, that was starting to get into bringing these services to consumers. I thought that everyone should have this, companies, consumers, and so I started to build an ISP. Created my connections. I think it was Global One was my first international ISP that I had to connect with in Norway, and I had to learn AS routing and things that you need to know to operate an ISP, connect to the exchange points in the country, and then set up servers and services along with that. That was in '93 that we started to build that,
And how long did you
then explaining to
operate
people that internet will be a big thing. No
yeah.
one believed you.
Right, because it's the early days, and for those not familiar with an ISP, so that's an internet service provider. So think, if you're a younger listener, it's likely your Spectrums, your Grandes, your AT&Ts, Verizons, and for most part, I mean, most people are probably using cellular, mobile phones in terms of getting their internet access. For some, if they don't have hardwire services into their space of dwelling. And so how long did you operate this ISP?
We operated it until, we sold it in '96.
Nice.
To a telco, the biggest Nordic telco, Telia Sonera. But continued actually to operate it for 2 years after that, so until beginning of '98.
And then I guess at that point you've had a successful exit. So what was next?
Yeah. Next, I mean, I work for that company, and I love my work. It's just that this telco wanted us to start to sell telephony, uh, as well as being into the company, and for those 2 years there where I operated the company, sort of on their behalf, we still operated like before, so we're still the sort of same company, and even a separate entity, just owned by them. I didn't want to be part of that, and so so I quit, and had some personal reasons to also take a break back then.
Yeah.
And so I had my break, and for some reasons I ended up staying in Singapore for a while, and while I was there, I thought of my idea for my next company.
The innovation bug bit again.
Yeah, exactly. And this ISP that we built, we obviously did everything that an ISP and a hosting company would do today. So we did all kinds of hosting, colo, and shared hosting, and domain registrations. Just everything that was normal to do if you were an ISP back then. And what I saw was that that there was a huge need in sort of bringing these services more packaged to companies, because you really had to have a lot of knowledge in order to get online back then, as a company. You had to contract with some tech help, and I just felt that that there should be this should be easier, and this I guess this kind of feeling goes again and again and again for many of the things that I do. When I think that things should be easier, I want to make them easier, and so I built a company that the initial name was Active ISP, and then it was renamed later to Active 24. So still summer of 98, and then that company was sort of based on automating everything related to hosting and everything relating to domain registrations. And as far as I know, we were the first one globally to automate all those things. So fully automated, from having an order page online. Obviously back then you couldn't pay online everywhere in the world. It was just not there.
What?
Yeah, you have WorldPay was one of the first players, and even them, they weren't like supporting the world exactly back then. There was some countries were
Parts of
supported,
the world.
many others were not. Like we had to take like checks, and so you
What?
couldn't really automate that. Like checks in the UK and many other places we had to take checks.
You had to
And
mail
send
them in.
the invoices. Sometimes we got paid, sometimes we didn't. Like
Yeah.
it was not straightforward back then. The domain name, for us it had sort of a general price, $100. That's a domain name, $100 per year. That's it, and that was actually cheap compared to a lot of things. So so we still managed to automate this. You can just get online, and you would have your service delivered in seconds, and we delivered something that was quite odd back then. We delivered our hosting was based on Windows. I mean,
Wow.
everything was based on Unix, but we sort of bought into Microsoft vision back then of becoming a platform for the internet, and they built a platform. What was it called? Was it MSIS, I think? The thing is, their platform that they built that we wanted to sort of adopt didn't work. It just didn't work. It never worked. And they made this sort of big thing about it, but it never worked. And unfortunately, it has happened to me 2 times in 2 companies. That I sort of bought into Microsoft Vision, and it didn't work.
So then what did you
yeah,
do?
so we had to make it work, right? Then we had to just build it and make it work, and we used, what was it, Front Page, that app to
Yeah.
make it easy to build a web page. Was quite a sort of revolutionary thing from Microsoft back then. Made it super easy to just build something for a novice, and just have your web page. And so that was really what got customers interested, because they could have everything set up, kind of the emails and everything. Everything was just automated and set up, which made it possible for us to advertise online. And that was completely new in the space of hosting. You advertised in magazines,
Right.
in Wired and in computer magazines, and so that's how you found your customers. You didn't look for them online because they weren't, So, but no, we more or less only advertised online and dominated that space for some time, way into the year 2000, when it comes to online advertisement.
Interesting. And so coming out of there now, when did you actually, I guess, dip your toe or just kind of come into domain investing? Because you don't necessarily consider yourself, I guess, a full-time domain investor, more like a domain hobbyist, right?
Yeah, I never been a full-time domain investor. I've always had it as a hobby and an interest, and I have domains and especially domains for branding as a special interest, because I use that every time I start a company. So so for me, it's I really see the value of having a good domain name. I just wasn't forward looking enough to just grab everything I saw back then. I would be flying jets like Frank Schilling now. It's but I don't. But still had tons of fun along the way doing what I love, and I think that's as important as I do appreciate making money. It's not that I don't want to say that I don't prioritize that, but it's not my main priority. It's really to learn and have fun, have laughs, and to deliver something that you think is valuable for customers. Make an impact.
Right.
And so I really felt that with that company, I made my impact. And then came .com crisis.
Wow. And what happened? And what happened during those moments of life?
I was lucky and not lucky. I was lucky because we were probably the hosting company in the world that grew fastest back then. If you go back to the beginning of 2000, and we raised a lot of money. Back then, it was a lot of money. We raised like $135 million, I think, in our last round. Yeah, quite a lot of money, and I think we were finished with that raising that cash 4 days before the crash came, and that came sort of, like many of the crashes, comes out of nowhere.
Right.
And it didn't take many weeks / months before this impacted the demand for domains and hosting. Not all crises impact this market negatively, but often you can look back and see that NASDAQ and domain registrations correlate somehow.
Really?
But not during this COVID, for example. But that's different versions of a crisis. So
Right.
I guess so. But no, we were lucky because we managed to get a lot of money in and continue to grow. Of course, we were unlucky because the demand fell, and we had, I guess, as founders, and me as the founder and CEO, lost my control over my company because I had VCs in, I had tons of shareholders, and I had a board, a very professional board, and I guess back then, I was still sort of young, young in the way that I had a couple of companies being on my belt, but I wasn't like experienced. And if I was experienced back then, I would just shake the board into thinking correctly, and be tougher. I was, I guess, too affected by this responsibility of all the money that we had taken in, and very much listening to these sort of older gentlemen that were on the board. All them thought that this hosting thing is going to go to zero, domain's going to worth nothing, and all this will sort of be a zero business, be given away for free. And they were driven by, there was, I think it was one company that gave it away for free. And I think that company we bought, I think in the Netherlands. But and so we made it not for free, but
imagine that.
But they were scared, and they pushed hard on getting into sort of more managed hosting and more the ASP direction. So for those who not heard that abbreviation, is ASP was back then really to operate virtual connections to Windows computers, and sort of run Windows platforms on behalf of customers. There was another big Norwegian company called Telecomputing that did that back then, and we also got into it, and spent too much money on that. I never really loved the direction, and I really loved what we started out as, namely to get small businesses online. So with all that, and with the sort of push to give the money back to shareholders instead of continuing to buy competitors and sort of grow through acquisitions, which was a huge opportunity back then. I do remember that we had the opportunity to bid for GoDaddy back then.
Oh, really?
And since we were one of the few companies in the space who had the money, the money to pull something like that off, we missed the train. And quite a few other companies that we could have picked up. We bought a lot of companies. We bought companies in the UK, Virtual Internet. We bought Carambol in Sweden, and we dominated the Nordics. We dominated much of Europe as well. We didn't dominate in the US. We had a foot in, and we should really have just rolled into the US. But that didn't happen. We sent much of the money back to the shareholders. The company continued to grow. I jumped off and continued my route to starting a new company. So that's
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so then in the latest of years, though, you've spent more time, I guess, doing work with DNS Global, and I think I remember it as the registry office, but it's been renamed to what I think it's like IQ Global.
IQ Global, yeah, that's right. So that company we actually had since 2011. Started out just helping other applicants to apply for these new domain extensions. And we had this idea that we should again, automate the application to ICANN, and we built it. We built that automation tool that would sort of create the application, because we thought that there would be so many companies that would want to own their brand as an extension. we were just way too late to the game. Like there was many companies that had worked on this for years when we started, and so we ended up pivoting that to apply for our own TLDs instead, and continued to sort of help and consult and even to help operate other TLDs at the same time. So we ended up having an application for .cloud and .global. .cloud was very popular to apply for, so we had Amazon and Google and and a bunch of others there. Ended up becoming a private auction. I think much because of our work, it became a private auction, and became a good cash infusion for our marketing in global. And we built global up till last summer, where we sold it, and after that we continued this company that is now called IQ Global, which builds business intelligence and abuse management systems for registrars and registries. So.
Interesting. So you still have that. You're still touching, or you have some sort of pulse on that domain registry business.
Yeah, really, quite a lot. I would say we have had that up to now. We help others with a lot of different things that we used to do only for ourselves. That the premium names valuations and strategies, and there's a lot of things that goes on for this market. So.
Gotcha. So not only is it a platform, so it's really a consultancy as well.
Yeah. It really is.
Interesting. So then in between that time, I guess the innovation bug bit you again, and it's in your latest project that I know I'm definitely excited to hear more about and see more about, based on the sole domain of desktop.com. So how and where did this come about?
Yeah, starting a new company for me means that I need to be sort of out of my previous company, and although I'm not completely out, because we still have this IQ Global as was a part of .global earlier. We did sell, and I did have sort of less to do, and that's when I allow new ideas to come in, because ideas really come a lot for me. I write them down, but 90% of them or more I never do anything about. But it's fun to sort of have and play with ideas. So this idea came in a good timing. So September last year, it just dawned on me that as a small business owner and employer staff, I felt that the way we work on the web is really not good. It's a mess. We use so many applications, and for small businesses, it's very normal to use web applications as the only kind of applications that you use. Going back, some years, most of those things were installed, and usually Windows applications. But also back then there was more order on things. So you would probably set up a profile for a staff member and give them access to this Windows account, and they logged in and they have all their things ready for them to see and use. And that's not how the web works. Those web apps, they are all over the place. Yes, you can store them in your bookmarks somehow, but it's not really a good interface for that. Your company can't really control your browser that well. So So you end up having each employee using their best efforts to keep some sort of order on apps. Also for small businesses, there's really no single sign-on, so
Right.
yeah, you have all those 40, 50 usernames and passwords, and so that's also quite tough. But for myself, I think the first pain was this thing that I don't have an overview. I just don't have it. Like we use so many things, I don't have an overview. Why do I
Right.
not have an overview of what we use? And some things you use every day, so obviously you have that overview. Those say 5-6 apps that you use every day. But the remaining 30-40 apps that you don't use every day, they use every now and then. Some you use once a week, and some even more rare. But still, you need that overview, and you forget names of apps. I've so many times forgotten the name of the app. Ask what do we do for what. Did we switch, or are we still using that tool, or and yeah, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be like this. And another thing that that came to me at the same time was relating to working only on the web. We store tons of bookmarks.
Right.
So not only do we have sort of issues with apps, but we have issues with bookmarks as well. I don't know about yourself, but I store a lot of bookmarks. So I get something sent to me on Slack or on Skype or whatever, however it comes to me. I say, yeah, look at that, check that out. Like good resource for this, good resource for that, or it's a document. That I need to. So I put those links into my bookmarks, and then they're gone. Because basically I get so many bookmarks that it's hard to find them.
Right.
And it's not really a good search tool in this bookmarks thing. That's a lot of browsers who can hardly even search for bookmarks. So that's bad. This thing that you can't really find things back that you put in there, and you cannot collaborate on it. So you send each other things, but then it's gone. Like things that you sent on Slack is just gone.
We threw it
So
in a box and it didn't
yeah,
come back.
yeah, it was very interesting, resourceful. That is something that you really need to have. But yeah, no, it's those things were my reasons for doing this. And then I was thinking, yeah, what the web lacks is a desktop. We
Right.
have a desktop for everything else. So why don't the web have a desktop? The browser is not the one. You need to have a desktop, and needs to be sort of cloud based. And then I was thinking, this must be a huge problem, because yes, I'm a resourceful tech type of user, but I'm also super lazy. So I'm always thinking I'm not very different to a novice user or a normal user when it comes to the way I do things. So I was thinking that this must be a huge need out there, and if I'm right, then then we need a big name. It needs a huge name. If I'm to do this project, it needs to be like with a big blast, with a big name, and that's when I started to look for the appropriate names. And my first choice was obviously taken. Desktop.com was taken. I thought that it would be probably owned by Microsoft, or that was my thinking. It's probably one of the big guys. They took that long time ago. But no, it was more sort of say incubator venture company that owned it,
Really?
called Idea Lab in the US. And I reached out to them and to the CEO there, and yeah, thought I would never get a reply. I didn't really get a direct reply. It took some time. Then I got an email, from one of their staff saying that, yeah, well, we're going to connect you with Cedo. And and so Cedo was managing their portfolio, and there was a very nice negotiation that started. Because they wanted a lot of money for this domain. That goes without saying. And we also paid a lot of money for it. But there was a positive negotiation, and I think a mutual good deal between us and Idea Lab.
And how long did it take in that negotiation process, from the time you thought about it to the time you actually owned it? I mean, is it months, weeks, a year?
Yeah, before we sort of signed the deal was 2 months. I think 2 months.
Nice. So not that long.
No, not too long. It went quite fast. It did.
Nice. Now did you have any other names that you thought about in terms of, because obviously desktop, I mean, that is the name of all names for this type of a service. Now,
Yeah.
did you
No,
think about other names, and if so, were they like one word or two word names?
I mean, I think one of the first domains that I took was desktop.app, which I bought from another domain investor through Uniregistrar. So of course that and that goes back to to seeing what would a small company startup do in
Right.
this, and I really wanted this name, so I took the sort of next best thing. I took the most relevant extension for this name. So I think that desktop.app was great, but not owning desktop.com would not be so great, especially because it's not like owned by sort of an irrelevant competitor. Like it could suddenly be owned by a competitor, and that's
Right.
something you always need to look at when you go for, say, secondary options, is to see that main option that you have. Is it owned by a competitor, or is it available for people to buy, or is it actually just owned by somebody who's probably never going to sell it, and they're into completely different business? And then it's fine, then it's more okay to go with the secondary option. And there are many examples like this in the industry. You have many companies that don't own a .com. I think we calculated one time that of the Fortune 500, it was 20% or something that didn't own their .com.
Really?
And yeah, but was my reaction right away. Like wow. And but you have huge banks that are called DNB, but then you have Dun & Bradstreet that owns DNB.com, and then you have SAS, the airline, but then you have SAS, the software company, and the consultants company that own SAS.com. So you have all these examples of huge companies that have the same name, but they're into completely different things. So it's not like if you want to buy a ticket to fly somewhere, you're not going to buy that with SAS, the computer company. So it's okay in some cases to go with secondary options. But I did also look into other sort of big and expensive .com names. I don't want to mention them directly because I don't want others to look into them. But I did have sort of what choice would I do after desktop.com that could go in the same directions, and there's some, but it's not much. That I can say that I think I found one that was good and one that was sort of medium. So there weren't tons of choices for me. That I can say there wasn't tons of choices, and I had my best choice, and I've tried that before. I think I wrote on LinkedIn as a comment lately. I wanted one time to buy meat.com. because I had a web conferencing company. We built a sort of an early stage Zoom back in early 2000, and I wanted to buy Meet.com, and I didn't manage back then. Yeah, I wanted to manage, but I probably should have bought it.
Right.
Should have paid up. Should have caved in. So this is the first time that I actually managed to get that choice, and I feel I stretched far. The sellers probably feel that they stretched far, to give it away as well. But I think mutually, hopefully a good deal, and I think it will make wonders for us. I think we will spend so much less in our marketing budget to find customers, just because if you have a name that people can see once and then remember it, that's unique. That's really unique. I look at the competitors that we have managed to sort of dig up in this space. They're not many. They're less than 10 total, and some of those 10 only focus on enterprise. I'm going to focus on consumers, and but mostly on small businesses. So it's a different space. There are competitors there too. None of them have good names. That's just an unfortunate thing. And some of them have these kind of names that the wannabe names. If you have the get blah 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 or try blah blah blah. It's and for some of them it's not possible to get the .com. And it's that's a shame.
So then what? In terms of, because obviously at the time of this recording, so we're only a few days away from launch.
Yeah. In fact, tomorrow we are supposed to do sort of a cold freeze and have our MVP, the first minimum product ready for sale. The sort of the good enough product that people can pay for, or hopefully want to pay for, and we're not launching it tomorrow. The plan is to launch it on Monday, to give us sort of this weekend to really do some hard testing on the production. We have had the service out on for test customers, and we have used it ourselves, and been on this production environment. We use Google Cloud for this for some time, but so we don't anticipate there being tons of problems. But we hope that within not too long, there should be a lot of users, and the dreams are hundreds of thousands and millions. Since we will be offering the consumer part for free, with no ads or anything, just as a help for anyone out there that use the web to organize things better. And that we hope that will create a funnel to become paying users for some. Most of them will never pay, and that's fine. But many will maybe take it with them to their companies, or some might be semi-professionals or freelancers or others that have a need for more professional features that we bundle into the paid versions. So it's it's rather exciting, and I still hope that we will launch on Monday. I can't say that for sure. There's still many bits and pieces, like there's VAT things, on the whole billing thing. There's still things going on for the whole, to make sure that we when you attack the world, with the service. Open up for everyone. It really needs to work everywhere too. So so it is really quite I feel quite an undertaking, especially in such a short period. We have had half a year of development behind us. We're a small core team. The core team is 5 people. So that's not very big, but we have a a big development company with us. And outsourced support, and we have three marketing companies that helps us with the different kind of objectives. So I think it should work well the way we're set up, but it really feels like we're small, but but we have many helpers, so it should work out.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And I like the idea of, like you said, you're going after a consumer market, but within that consumer market, they're likely to take it, especially if they're working in a small business,
Yeah,
whether that's one person upwards to 50 people, they could actually take it into their environment. And more
yeah,
likely than not, because most of those environments don't necessarily sometimes have a full on dedicated IT staff, or if they do, it's smaller. The tool that you provide in desktop.com is able, it's quite flexible, scalable, but it's something that it doesn't matter, I guess, in terms of being able to say, hey, we assigned you Word application or the Microsoft suite to a laptop. It's just kind of like, no, whether I'm in Florida and I decide to go get on an open kiosk, I could actually get to desktop.com, do whatever work I need to do, log off, and it just doesn't require me to only specifically work on a single asset, if you will.
yeah. Takes me into how did we build this, because the thing is that our competitors, they build a software that you install on your computer.
Right.
They build maybe based on the browser, so they maybe take the Chromium code and they build a browser, and they ask you to switch from your Firefox to their browser that operates differently than Firefox, or switch from Chrome, and the same thing. And because of that, it's very, very expensive to run that kind of development. It's common for them not to have that same service available on a mobile or tablet because of that. I think that the web has come far as a framework to build applications. It's actually possible now using the progressive web app technology, that kind of platform that Google introduced in 2015. To build applications that look and feel exactly like an installed native application. You can build something that works offline. You can build AutoCAD, for example, 3D drawing tools using a web application. So why would the world continue in that direction? I can't see any better choice for any app developers in the future to not go this direction, because you have one code base and you don't need to sort of tailor your tool for devices. You tailor it for different screen sizes. You make breakpoints. But it's one code base. Samsung comes with a new mobile, so what? It's okay.
Right.
You don't need to build a new Android version for them then. So much cheaper and much more flexible and faster. So that's also a thing, that the progressive web application has a very small footprint on any device that you put it in, and you can actually install it in the way that you feel that you install an app. It's actually not really installed. It's a small snippet that is installed on your computer, so that you can get an icon and launch it like any other app. And progressive web app today, you can install it on a phone, on your computer, or wherever. So and then when it pops up, it doesn't look like a web page. It
Right.
looks like an app. That's how it works. That's how a progressive web app works. And so we built desktop.com as a progressive web app. And
Because
that's
even
new. That's completely new.
because you also get notifications with progressive web apps, much like
Yeah,
your
it's
normal apps, right?
Yeah, yes and no. It's not built out as well as it should. So that's really actually one of the biggest topics in the progressive web app community now, is to make to push the technology platforms to adopt it well. Often, the kinds of Apple are sort of late to the game for their reasons. Like Apple is usually making sure that things really work before they before they jump on board, and they don't necessarily want to be the first movers. Although Apple was the first mover to put this type of frameworks as a possibility to install on your phone. So I guess it was Steve Jobs that introduced that with with add to home screen feature. That's actually the same thing. It's and it's that feature that is still being used when you install a progressive web app on the iPhone. So, notifications. It's not as well as with a native application, but it's coming. I'm not worried about that. We have notifications inside the service, so as long as you live inside the service, it's not a problem. But you want push notifications to go to the operating systems and other things that comes from the progressive web app, and that's where some platforms are better at the adoption, others are not as good. But yeah, no, it really is important.
So then, in terms what are your hopes in terms of this release? Obviously, you're at the beginning of this journey, but you've had many successful launches as well as exits. And so, what do you hope and believe for in terms of desktop.com becoming?
Well, the number of customers that you end up with, it's really difficult to say. I have some good dreams there, but what I hope is that if you fast forward 5 years from now, we're one of the top 5. Because the top 5 in 5 years, it's 10 companies now. I think it's hundreds of companies that does this. When it's like a little bit like hosting, not as much because it's more difficult, higher barrier of entry to this space than hosting, but still, I think a lot of companies will join this effort of providing a platform for web applications when we see that this progressive web app race is really taking off, and you have to remember that it's only the last year, so 2019, where progressive web apps were supported on all the major platforms, including Apple. So I mean, so I think that the wave starts now. Certainly don't think we're too early. I don't think we're too late. And in 5 years from now, if we're one of the top 5, we're big. We're really big. I think that we'll see some of the really big guys, the Google and the Microsoft and the Apple and the Facebook and others, also jumping on board this wagon. It's that is just something I expect. Of course, that's something that every investor would fear. I think it's something that we shouldn't fear too much. We shouldn't fear too much if we end up becoming a competitor to all these, but we're still in the top 5. And of course, you could be picked up by one of the big guys if they put up enough money. So that's also not negative.
Right.
But no, my plan is my plan is to not really have a plan when it comes to exit or anything like that. It's really to do my best to grow and to innovate and until I feel that I'm not much more to give. That we have sort of reached the peak of where we should be innovation wise, and sort of been inventive when it comes to marketing and sales and the distribution models, which will also in this case be probably a lot of different ways to reach the customer. We'll start off by simple outbound marketing as the main strategy, and we hope we'll do well there. It's how I've grown a few companies before. we do hope to have a distribution model that will involve the domain industry, because we are making this platform domain centric, and we do think that there is some good synergy with the domain and hosting industry and the platform that we have built. So we'll see if that works well. But if anybody should manage to get into that space, it should be us.
Exactly. So then wrapping up, I mean, what would your advice be to someone starting their journey in domain investing or into the domain industry, specifically speaking to innovation? Like, where should they start?
Well, I mean, for domain investing, it's really to focus on areas where you have where you have some maybe additional insight or some passion. Maybe there's a vertical industry that you know more than perhaps the general guy, picking good brandables and good marketing names, for that sector, good keyword names, is obviously the way to go. But domain investors always start at some point. Some investors have a lot of money from the beginning, so they can pick and choose, but most don't. So
Yeah.
and if you want that don't, but you want to build it up, from the beginning, start small. Don't think that you need to start at buying names for thousands of dollars. You shouldn't. You should start to pick up, drop names that drop, or and there's still good possibilities for hand registration with nice names. But you have to be inventive. You have to try out the different search platforms to help you in getting good combinations, and there are good names to register on both .coms and especially also many of the new extensions. I know that is not popular in the domain investor circles to jump onto the new extensions, and I do understand it. .com is sort of on the top of the pyramid, but that doesn't mean that it's not good opportunities there, and it's really where we see a lot of startups go is to all these new extensions, because they have to.
Right.
It's just a natural thing. And but in that space, it's more sort of easy to buy something for maybe $100-$200 and sell it for 2,000, than buying a .com for 2,000 and sell it for 20. So it's many good opportunities, and it's not bad to start small. For most domain investors, I would just say, list it everywhere, get distribution, be good at your systems. I've never been, so I have to say that. As a registry, I've been,
Right.
as a professional party in this, I've been. But for me personally, no, I've been. My systems hasn't been good. I've had good sales. That's been more because I just sit on my names until they sell. That's not a strategy, though. It's more it's more just how it becomes. So for
But it's a
myself,
testament to the quality of the names that you selected, though.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's the thing. It can be a strategy, but you better have, I'm not going to say the highest of highest, but they do need to be considerable,
Yeah.
and
I
reasonable
would say
names.
I've seen a lot of spreadsheets with domain investors, their assets. I often am invited to look at it to maybe buy something from them. The domain investor community sells to each other. So, and I have to say, a lot of people use this shotgun method. Like you just grab too many names, too not valuable names that you never have any sort of relationship with. you know,
In hopes.
too long or too many dashes, or whatever the case is, but just if you are in the beginning, go slower, go smaller, take fewer names but good names, so that the keeping these names up for renewals is not the problem for you. I think
Right.
that's really important.
Right. Certainly. And then last but not least, I mean, is there anything else that you'd like to share with listeners in terms of how they can get in contact with you or anything? I mean, obviously you got desktop.com coming, so.
Yeah, I mean, you can either reach me on LinkedIn, or you can email me on rolf@desktop.com.
Awesome. And so everybody, be on the lookout. Obviously, we're recording this is July the 2nd, but hopefully that target date is July the 6th, which is a Monday, that desktop.com will release and launch. And so certainly head over there and take a look around. And, like I said, I mean, it's from everything that I can see, it'll certainly be more of a intuitive self-service, environment that really requires no IT. It's
Yeah.
just as probably very much like working with I would imagine something akin to Google Docs or something like that. That it'll be just as easy, yeah, if not easier, right?
Less menus, more touch friendly, more like your phone. That's sort
Totally.
of the aim, to be to be much more in the user interface that you are used to on your phone.
Less tech, more use.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that, we're out of time. So, Rolf, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your domain industry and entrepreneurial experience. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name investing strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.